Welcome to Management Live, World Business Forum Milan 2015. We've packed our greatest event into a TV show to entice you with news stories and to update you with the latest trends that are shaping the business world. Once again, we invite to our stage the world's most recognized trendsetters, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators to discuss the hottest topics and the changing rules that are shaping a new world. Push the boundaries, challenge the conventional, and reinvent your business. For our first conference presentation, let's invite one of the most prestigious CEOs in history, entrepreneur, passionate, and an excellent leader who knows how to create meaningful brands and unleash everyone's talent. His energy and his willingness for adventure has led him to create Virgin, an empire of more than 400 companies. Let's hear his amazing insights on how to stay on top.
We saw a few of the logos flashed up there on the video. You've developed an incredible array of businesses over the course of, your career. What do they have in common? Is it possible to sort of identify an essence that unites them all?
Well, I think you have to think, what is a business? A business is simply an entrepreneur coming up with an idea that's going to make other people's lives better. And the important thing is that throughout your life, if you're going to start new businesses, that you make sure that every business is making people's lives better, and that you never let people down. So Virgin has gone into many different sectors, but we try to go in and shake up big industries, and we try to make sure those industries are never the same again. And we try to do it with style, with panache, and try to have a lot of fun doing it as well. And so far it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, is there sort of a way of leading, a way of doing business which you would say sort of epitomizes the Virgin way or the Branson way?
Most of our lives are spent at work, and I think that a lot of business leaders forget that. So since life should be fun, work should be fun, so we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make sure that people who work for Virgin want to come in on a Monday morning. And they want to enjoy what they're doing. And so we create a lot of flexibility at Virgin for people to, individual flexibility. So, if there's a single mother who wants to work or has to work, we maybe suggest that she should work from home and not work from an office. If somebody needs to work from home on Fridays and Mondays, let them work from home on Fridays and Mondays. If somebody needs to take a month off and take their family away for a month, let them take a month off. It's just, if somebody wants to work part-time, let them work part-time. And so I think it's very important to have a lot of flexibility in the workforce. We're also experimenting on things which are more radical. For instance, the last couple of years, a lot of Virgin offices have said to their staff, you take your holidays when you want. We're not going to tell you how much holiday you should take. If you feel you need to take holiday, take a holiday. If you've got birthdays or weddings, take the day off. Don't ask permission. Do your best to get your work done, but, again, a lot more flexibility.
Thank you, Richard. You're always an inspiration for everyone. Coming next on stage, one of the world's leading thinkers on creativity and innovation, Sir Ken Robinson, here to prove that finding your passion is the key element to achieving happiness and success. He also fervently believes that any organization needs to challenge and unleash everyone's potential to disrupt the market. Let's hear what Ken has to say.
Why do companies collapse? Why do institutions collapse? How many of you have got an iPhone? Okay, look, I have an iPhone. You should know this. In the 20th century, the equivalent of the iPhone at the very beginning of the 20th century was the Brownie camera that was developed by Kodak. The Brownie camera was the most extraordinary technological breakthrough. It's very interesting history to the Brownie camera, but it was developed by Kodak in the late 19th century and was marketed in the early 20th century. It was a revolution. It was as revolutionary in its time as the iPad is now. People were amazed that you could take a photograph and have the picture come back in 2 weeks. It was the first time in history, really, this was made possible. Previously, if you wanted your photograph taken, you had to sit still in a studio while somebody set off an explosion in your face, which I think explains why so many Victorians look startled. You know, I thought they were just very nervous because it was the end of empire. But actually, it was just because of the magnesium. Kodak in the 20th century was synonymous with photography, wasn't it? A Kodak moment. When I grew up, Kodak was to most people, the most prominent brand in photography. It's now collapsed. It went into bankruptcy proceedings a couple of years ago. And interestingly, the reason is not that people have stopped taking photographs. On the contrary, people are taking more photographs than ever, aren't they? Irritatingly, more photographs than ever. Like, here is a picture of my cappuccino. Fantastic. Here is the same cappuccino, moments later. Well, you'll see I've had a sip from the side of it. These are important social documents. The reason Kodak collapsed is the same reason the British Empire collapsed. It didn't tell itself a different story. It stayed with the old story that had stopped being true. Kodak was a company invented by chemists. They loved chemistry. They made chemical film. It was a chemical process. They had a role in the development of digital photography, but they didn't believe in it. They didn't believe that people would give up chemical film for digital photography, but they did. And the consequence was that their lunch was stolen by little companies like Instagram as the world moved on and left Kodak behind, because they didn't adjust the narrative. This is what happens. Companies go, most companies, by the way, if you look at the history of corporate life, very few companies make it to the age of 20, comparatively. If you compare the numbers that survive to the numbers that are born, the number of startups, very few companies get to 20 years of age, very small number get to 50, and a small minority make it to 100. They follow a life cycle. They get born, they die, or they dissipate, or they collapse. And part of this is about the narrative. And one of the reasons is this. When I say we're living in revolutionary times, it's, I think, literally true. There are two big drivers, I think, of change now. One of them is technology. It's what happened to Kodak. They were overtaken by a new technology. There are 2 points I want to make about technological change. One, of course, is the speed of it. I have no doubt that if your grandchildren, in about 30 years' time, will be looking at photographs of you with your iPad with patronizing smiles. You know, you're so thrilled with these devices, and they'll be looking at you saying, what was that? What are you holding? in your hand? Is it like a thing? You know, you have to touch it. I was at Google recently, I was talking about this last night. Did any of you ever buy Google Glass? Do you know what it is? It's that thing that, it's an iPhone attached to your face, essentially. That's not what it says in the brochure, but that's what it is. And you make it work by tapping it and winking through it and speaking to it. It's a very odd thing to see somebody with Google Glass. It's causing chaos in cocktail bars as people try to control this thing. The people at Google explained to me that we need Google Glass because at the moment, they said, if you want to go online, you have to put your hand in your pocket and take out your phone. You know how difficult that can be, don't you? Putting your hand in your pocket and taking out your phone. And then they said, if you want to go online, you have to touch it with your fingers. It's a form of oppression, isn't it? I don't know why we tolerate it. When I was a student, I used to go to the library. Do you remember libraries? Large buildings with books. I would spend all day at the library. Well, a student day. I mean, like from lunchtime till the middle of the afternoon. And I would have 3 or 4 references and I would be thrilled with myself. Now, you can search, 100 billion pages of the internet in 15 seconds on your phone. And if it takes more than 15 seconds, you're getting irritated, aren't you? You say, come on, I haven't got all minute. Let's speed this thing up. Technology is moving forward exponentially, and probably within if you listen to people like Ray Kurzweil, in the next 20, maybe 30 years, we won't be wearing devices on our body, we'll be wearing them inside our body. They'll be integrated with our intelligence. My point is simply that technology hasn't stopped evolving, it's accelerating in its evolution. And it's one of the reasons that it's almost impossible to predict the course of its impact. And that's the second thing, that technology's impact normally is unpredictable.
Thank you, Sir Ken Robinson, for sharing those amazing ideas with us. Are you enjoying the show? Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Management Live Milan 2015. And we're back with more Management Live Milan 2015. Now let's invite on stage Sarah Lewis, an expert on linking culture, history, and identity to face new challenges and innovate in this rapidly changing world. She's an assistant professor of history of art and architecture at Harvard University and is here to empower us to start facing risks and start seeing failures as new opportunities to succeed next time.
Many organizations have the equivalent to this Friday night experiment time. And they do so because they know that oftentimes innovative ideas look so outlandish that they can seem like failure. So they bracket this innovative time. At Google, they had 20 and still have 20% time in which they allow their engineers to tinker with ideas that might not lead anywhere, but that might result in a path-breaking idea for their company. Sarah Blakely also talks about the willingness and the need to embrace this sense of amateurism when you're innovating a product, and many other organizations do as well. Like the Mayo Clinic, known for its innovation in medical solutions, they created something similar to this so that they could allow their engineers to be deliberate amateurs for a period. They created what they called the Queasy Eagle Award. Not sure how that translates in Italian. The idea was that they wanted to honor the first ideas for patents that didn't quite make it, that had a bit of a failed flight, but that led to new ideas for their company. They had an 18-month period for this Queasy Eagle Award. In the beginning of the 18 months, they had 36 ideas for new patents. And at the end of the 18 months, they had 245 new ideas for patents. It was an exponential level of growth that came. And why did it come? Part of the barriers to innovation and creativity, and I'm sure brilliant Ken Robinson, Sir Ken Robinson, if he's here, spoke about this, is that we're often inhibited. We often feel a sense of shame from coming and doing what might be seen as a failure to some, but is requisite for the process of innovation. The safe haven, really, that the Friday night experiments offered lowered these barriers, let people feel unencumbered and free to state a new idea that they might not have ordinarily. I want to now speak about a related idea, this third characteristic, which is looking at the importance of privacy in the context of putting a work out there. And for that, I'm going to take us to Hollywood, the entertainment industry, and tell you another story about how executives there learned about the role of privacy in innovation. These films, Juno, Slumdog Millionaire, Lars and the Real Girl, and The King's Speech, would never have come to light if not for the mechanism that the blacklist created to allow executives to have privacy when making decisions about iconoclastic, unusual, creative ideas. Now, the blacklist is a very simple thing. It was really a list, a document that a young man named Franklin Leonard, who I went to Harvard with actually, created. He was working for Leonardo DiCaprio at his film production company, and frustrated that he couldn't find unusual, unique screenplays to produce. Instead, it was sequels constantly, Anchorman 2, and constantly the pre-sold property that executives knew was going to make money, and so they would do it again and again. So he decided to do something interesting. He created an anonymous email account using Gmail, and he wrote to 90 colleagues and asked them simply, tell me what screenplays you secretly love. Second, please ensure these screenplays will not be in theaters in the next 12 months. And finally, please ensure that no one has yet produced these screenplays. They all did as they were asked. Franklin tabulated the answers, sorting the screenplays by the number of votes each one received. And then he sent out the document anonymously and went on vacation. Let me go back one slide. This is the document from 2005. Hollywood development stopped that day when they realized that scripts that people were making fun of, seeming failed scripts, were actually films that people really wanted to see get made, but were ashamed to state in public. Screenplays like Juno, Lars and the Real Girl, Things We Lost in the Fire. If you look at the Academy Awards in America for the last 10 years, you'll see that half of the awards for Best Original Screenplay have come from scripts discovered through the blacklist. So Franklin sent this document out, went on vacation, turned off his cell phone. It's 2005, so he could turn off his cell phone. Came back from vacation and found that over 100 people had sent him this document, essentially asking, what is this incredible thing? And they didn't know that he was the inventor of the blacklist, and he thought he was going to be fired, which he eventually was. And he went on to create a company that rolls out this document like Netflix, so that you can find these unusual screenplays day by day.
Those were great insights, Sarah. Coming next, are you ready to learn the secrets for radical innovation? Stephen Kotler is coming to our stage to tell us why he believes the world is entering an era of abundance, where each of us has the power to transform everything. Learn how to combine human capabilities, technology, and consciousness to create a better future.
So I spend most of my time working at the intersection of disruptive technology and human capability. And I want to use the little bit of time that we have together today to talk about what we're seeing at that intersection. Because we're seeing something amazing. We're seeing something we've actually never seen before in history. Today, for the very first time, individuals have the power to change the world. Now you got to think about this. This is an enormous shift. If you go back 1,000 years ago, the only people with the power to change the world were kings and pharaohs. If you go back 100 years ago, the only people with the power to change the world were robber barons and industrialists. If we go back 20 years ago, the only people with the power to change the world were large corporations and big governments. But today, it is all of us. And that means today, for the very first time, changing the world comes down to a decision. And what I want to do today is I want to help you make that decision. To put things in WOBI terms, my goal is to help you tell a bigger story. There are a couple reasons I want to help you tell this bigger story. The first, a couple years ago, I teamed up with Peter Diamandis and we wrote a book called Abundance. The idea at the heart of this book is that today, for the first time ever, it is possible to significantly increase global standards of living. It is within our reach to end poverty, to end hunger, to provide everybody on this planet with the water they need, the energy they need, education, and healthcare. But the really important point is this isn't automatic. It's doable, but it's not going to happen on its own. It's going to require the largest cooperative effort in history. And that brings us to the first reason I want to help you tell a bigger story. Because right now, like it or not, the world needs you. There's another reason you might want to tell this bigger story. Today, for the very first time, the world's biggest challenges are also the world's biggest business opportunities. You want to make $1 billion? Help 1 billion people. And we see examples of this all the time. We see examples of individuals making a decision to change the world. Think about Google. Google started out with 2 guys just out of college, in graduate school, who decided they were going to organize all the world's information. And if you stop and you think about that, that is an enormous, grand challenge. That's an incredible challenge. And they pulled it off. It has impacted every one of our lives, and it has earned Sergey Brin and Larry Page a spot on the Fortune 500 top 20 list. Now the bad news. The old you won't cut it. Yes, we are more empowered than ever before, but the old you isn't built to take advantage of that power. The issue, the heart of this, well, most of us know this, and my favorite example of how the old you won't cut it is the term VUCA, right? It stands for volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. This was originally a military acronym. It was meant to describe the incredibly challenging conditions of urban warfare. But today, we use it to describe our daily lives. We use it to describe our business lives. Harvard Business Review recently called VUCA a trendy managerial term. This is insane. This is a term that was invented to talk about how difficult it is to fight on the streets of Mogadishu. And today, we use it to describe life at the office. I call this the VUCA paradox. The problem is the speed and the scale of change today is faster and wider than anything we've ever seen before. It's the very reason we are so empowered, but it's also the very thing holding us back. And this isn't about character. This isn't a matter of will. You can't force yourself to up-level. The problem is biological. It's in our brain. The issue is that our brains evolved in an environment that was local and linear. Local meaning everything that we encountered in our life was basically within a day's walk. Linear, meaning the rate of change was very, very slow. So your great-great-great-grandfather's life was about the same as your life, was about the same as your great-great-grandchildren's life. Today, we live in a world that is global and exponential. Global, meaning something happens on the other side of the world, we hear about it seconds later. Your computers actually hear about it milliseconds later. Exponential, meaning the rate of change is accelerating very, 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 very quickly. So forget the difference between your great-great-grandfather's life and your great-great-grandson's life. Today, 1 year to the next, the change is radical.
It's incredible listening to this successful author talking about his greatest insights. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly with more Management Live Milan 2015. We're coming to the end of the show, but first we have 2 more conference presentations to enjoy. Do you want to know the keys to leverage your organization's collective genius? Greg Bandeau is here to share with us his long experience of sending creative businesses to the top. Having created enormous value for companies such as Next and Pixar, he's the current CTO of Disney, where he led technology innovation from film production to global collaborative tools.
So in our going around the world, we discovered that there were paradoxes that all the managers that we talked to had to deal with. And on the left-hand side of this chart is what I would say are individual characteristics, which each of us has inside of us and that we need to celebrate in our employees. So their individual identity, the fact that I'm going to support them, that I'm going to teach them what they need to know in the future, because what we're doing today is not what we're going to be doing 3 years from now. And if I'm not teaching them the new things that they need to know, how are we as a company going to be successful? On the right-hand side of this chart is the idea of taking all of those great ideas from our employees and harnessing them to create something that we couldn't individually do. So I simultaneously want to support somebody's individual identity, but I also want to create a collective identity. The collective identity is basically just the sum of all the people in the organization being added together. I want to support each of the people in my organization, but it also turns out I need them to argue with each other, and I need them to argue with me. Because if we're not arguing, the best ideas are not coming out. I mentioned learning and development. What we know today is not going to be what we need to know 3 years from now. But on the other hand, we still have to have performance. So if I send people to classes all the time, then there's not going to be any performance of just paying the bills for this year. So there's a tension between learning and performance, and learning and development and performance, right? There's improvisation versus structure. Sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, you start improvising and you get to where you need to be. But once that improvisation has sort of been figured out, shouldn't you turn that into a structure? Then also in an organization, there are going to be times when, at the bottom of the organization, somebody's going to have a really great idea, and you want those ideas to come out. But sometimes there's going to be the case where it's above those people at the bottom's pay grade to make a decision. So there are times when you have to be both bottom up and top down. And it turns out that these little humans that are on there, since I'm an animator, I can make the chart animate. The reason that animation happened is because each of these 6 dimensions is something that you're balancing all day long with every single conversation you're having. So There are three things I want to talk about now, which is three capabilities that an organization needs to have. And those are creative abrasion, creative agility, and creative resolution. So creative abrasion is simply the idea that we're going to have vigorous discussions as an organization. And by vigorous discussions, I mean we're going to get into a room and we're going to argue about what the right thing to do is. A simple analogy that I have for this is the following. I've had the experience where when I go to bed at night and I've been working on a problem, I go to sleep and in the middle of the night I wake up and I think, oh, I've got exactly the right answer. And then I go back to sleep and I wake up in the morning and I look at that answer that I thought and it's like, what was I thinking? And it's sort of like my subconscious mind when I was sleeping came up with an idea, but in the morning when I woke up, my conscious mind looked at it and said, that doesn't make any sense, and poked at it. Well, it's the same idea of what we want to do with a group of people. We want to get them into a room and say, let's debate the idea. Let's see how we can make this idea better. And I'm just saying that that concept we call creative abrasion. It polishes our ideas so that they're better. The next piece is creative agility. And this morning, Sarah talked about failure. Creative agility is the idea of testing a bunch of ideas and seeing which ones stick. So you're trying to go from, you have a product idea where you're trying to get here, but you're here right now. And if it's innovative, a new product, and you've never done it before, by definition, you don't know how to get here. So you're going to have to do a bunch of experiments along the way to get there. In Silicon Valley, there's this phrase called fail quickly. And I will just tell you that I don't want to fail quickly. I want to succeed quickly. In order to succeed quickly, you have to do a bunch of experiments. And so here's a little animation of the idea of what we're talking about here. We're going to try a whole bunch of ideas, and we're going to throw them up in the air and keep on working on them. And some of them are going to work out, and some are not. But the ones that don't work out, as was discussed this morning, those are not failures. The only time when you have a failure is when you didn't learn something from your experiment. Because if you've learned something from your experiment, you can figure out how to adjust to get back up here. But when you're going up there, you're going to have a bunch of turns that take you the wrong way, and you have to adjust. Another part that we found that all these organizations had in common was creative resolution. How do we make decisions? So many organizations, and you've all been in this room, you have a group of people, you have faction A and faction B, and people who come in that are on team A, they say, our idea is the best, we should do this one. And the people who are in team B, they come in and say, oh, no, our idea is better, we should do this. And what happens is they negotiate. And the people in team A say, yeah, I know I got to work with you in the future, so all right, we'll do some of your stuff. And so they take some of the stuff out of team B's ideas, right? We've all been in that room. And then team B says, yeah, okay, we got to do some of team A stuff. But here's what you get when you do that. You get A and B equals C, you would think. But actually, what I just described is this. It's A and B equals the LCD, the lowest common denominator. What's actually happened is that in making decisions in this way, by choosing, and just doing politics to choose which is going to work, you've actually picked the least useful thing out of both of the ideas, and that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is this. You want to take ideas A and B and combine them to come up with a whole new idea.
Thanks, Greg. It's always a pleasure hearing firsthand from the most creative minds. Now, for the last conference presentation. Ziauddin Yousafzai is a globally recognized mind who fights for global education equality. He and his daughter, Milan, have become leaders in developing new visions and encouraging everyone to challenge traditional norms and systems. Their story is an inspiration for everyone. Don't miss this presentation.
So, through education, I rediscovered myself. It transformed me. And because of their grooming, I was very sensitive right from the very early childhood to all kind of inequality, discrimination, and any unfairness. And I had many problems, like this is the business community, and first you work on yourself. A business leader has to be stronger himself. So the first thing that you do is you do on your own personality. And I had a problem. I had many complexes, as many teenagers have. Like I was thinking that I'm dark in color, I'm not handsome. I had a problem that my nose is very big. I used to do like this, oh, it's very big, when I was a boy. And I had the stammering problem as well. I could not speak fluently. I tried many things like Demosthenes, small table under my tongue and speaking, Moses' prayers. So I worked on my own deficiencies, and I was able to turn my deficiencies into a power, into a strength. Later on, when I just graduated from a university and college, and I was thinking of marriage, so I had a great, keen desire that why half of our population, it is ignored. The girls' education is not considered at all. Hardly few girls are being sent to school, and even their education is not taken serious. And I thought that if I have a daughter, I will educate her very seriously, very properly. Because I found my strength because of education. I overcome all weaknesses through education. So I believed in it. And when I married and I had a daughter, I named her after Malala of Mewand. Malala of Mewand, I should talk about her a little bit. Malala of Mewand was a girl, 17, 18 years old girl, and it was Second Anglo-Afghan War. In 1880, in the town of Mewand, which is near to Kandahar in Afghanistan. And what happened in this war, Second Anglo-Afghan War, the Afghan fighters, the Pashtun fighters, they were fleeing away from the battlefield. And this girl, who was 17, 18 years old, who was basically for the purpose of helping to give water and other assistance to the soldiers, she saw that the fighters are leaving the battlefield. And she rose to a mount. She rose to a mountain, small mountain, and she raised her voice. And she raised her voice, and that voice was in Pashto, in our language, Kapamewan ki shahid nashwi, grana lalia benangele de satina. Oh, young Lao, if you don't fall on this battlefield, it means that somebody is saving you for a shameful day. And when the Pashtun fighters listened to that voice, they turned back and they redoubled their strength and they fought bravely, and that Malala of Mewand brought victory to her nation. And she raised the flag on the battlefield, and she was shot and martyred. Malala of Mewand is like Joan of Arc in Afghan history. She is a famous, legendary heroine. Why did I name Malala after her? The reason was three reasons. Because of three reasons, when I had a daughter, I named her after Malala of Mewand. Number one, in patriarchal societies, women don't have stories. Men have stories. Women don't have stories. The simple story of a woman, she is born, and once they know that she's a girl, then even gender is not discussed. And when she grows old, the family waits that when we would be able to marry her. So after birth, there is no dream for her. No role, no contribution to society, no role in economic, political, and social life. Just one thing, that she will grow, she will marry, and she will have children again. And there her story is ended. So this story is not a story at all. So I was thinking that Malala Yousafzai had a story, number one. Number two, Malala Yousafzai had an identity. She was not known by her father or by a brother. She was known by herself. Because I know in patriarchal society, women are known by their men. Like even when you take a woman patient to a doctor, I used to take my mother. When my father used to take my mother to the doctor, and the doctor used to ask, what is the name of this lady? So my father used to say, right, wife of Mr. So-and-so. And when I used to take her, so the doctor used to write, mother of Ziauddin, when I was in year 5 or 6, 7, I don't know. So women are known by their association with men. So Malala Yousafzai had her own identity. And number third, she was brave. And number four, she had a voice. And that's why when Malala was born, I named her after Malala Yousafzai.
Thanks for joining us today on Management Live World Business Forum Milan 2015. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.